is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan hanging out with you on a What to Watch Wednesday edition of the program where we give you 10 games. That's right, 10 matchups to tune into and watch this weekend. Some of them because they got a little local flavor, some of them because they got a little national impact, some of them because I just like the rivalry. There's a lot of reasons that we choose the games that we choose, but we give you 10 every week. And this has quickly become one of my favorite segments of the weekend because I've always just naturally done this, kind of lined up the weekend. But now I set it up for you. And you can find out when the most opportune time to, mow the grass or go to the store. And this week presents some early opportunities. Not a lot in the early window. We've been talking a lot about Dabo Swinney, the rumors of Texas A&M, what Paul Feinbaum had to say about it. Again, one of the other parts of Feinbaum's statement I don't agree with is where he says Dabo Swinney aligns well from a cultural standpoint. I don't agree with that. I told you here on the program yesterday, I think at some point A&M would have really fit Dabo Swinney. I don't think they do today. I think more so than A&M, I think Alabama certainly does. I could probably go through a host of programs that I think really have fit or would fit what Dabo Swinney kind of wants to have as a program. Now, could he change it to what he wants, kind of mold it? Yeah, I think he could. You see how he's done at Clemson, how quickly he did it. But I don't think right now they are the culture that he wants to be involved in. I mean, it's a cutthroat, win at all cost. And you might say, well, isn't that what Swinney? I don't think so. Swinney's the success that Clemson has had, whether you want to believe it or not, is because of the type players that they get. And I don't mean the type athletes. That's helped, but it's the ability to find guys. I've said this for so many years. It's the ability to find 4-star players who put in 5-star effort and become 5-star players. It's the ability to find 3-star players who put in 5-star effort and become 4-star guys. Clemson didn't magically overnight start recruiting better than everybody else and getting the best of the best in terms of recruiting. They've certainly done well in that capacity, but this is not a program that's built on hoisting championships at the end of the year. That's not the end goal for this, for what Dabo Swinney sees for every player that comes in. Does he want them to hoist national championships? Yes. But would he prefer to run a program where kids are graduating and his guys aren't in the news for, all kind of issues that players can run into? That, I think, is the goal. Can you be perfect at that? No, it's impossible. It's impossible no matter how much you bring guys in your culture, love them up, build them up, have the Paul journey and all that you invest in those young men. You can't control the decisions that they make. You can only teach them how to make good decisions. And you have to hope that they continue down that path. I think he could turn the culture at A&M, but I don't think it is the culture that he would want. I just don't. Anyway, EFB, adios. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, be a part of the program anytime. So, what to watch Wednesday? Here we go. Noon. You're free, man. You're free. You go out. You have a good time. You do you for that noon window. And I mean it. It is a lot of nothing. One game in that noon window worth tuning in and just checking out. And it's really more about one team. Well, okay. So number 10, Louisville at Miami. Noon kickoff, ABC. If you're in the Miami area, tickets are $7, if that gives you any idea what we're talking about right now from the standpoint of the Miami Hurricanes and their fans' level of support. And you got to remember, this is a 6-4 team that managed to beat Clemson with their backup quarterback after the Tigers fumbled at the goal line. Just a frustrating start to the season for Clemson. But I digress. Miami enters off of back-to-back losses. They lost to NC State 20-6 on the road. They lost to Florida State 27-20. And now the Cardinals come rolling in. And the Cardinals have a chance. If they win, they will be 7-1 in conference play, and they will secure a berth in the ACC championship game against the Florida State Seminoles. That's one reason to watch. Number 2 is on the flip side. When Miami brought in Mario Cristobal, I don't know the guy. I've been around him a couple of times. I've interviewed him once. Mario Cristobal, when I heard him at ACC Media Days, not specifically with me, but year one, there was kind of an arrogance about him. You know, he comes across as being a guy who was a 5-star quarterback and not a guy that played on the offensive line. And you look at the 2 seasons that he's put together. I haven't checked the coaching hot seat lately, but I've got to believe that if Cristobal loses this game, falls to 6-5 on the season, with a matchup on the road at Boston College looming, if you know, and they're likely to lose this game. Let me see, what is ESPN? What's the spread on this ball game? I honestly don't even know. Miami minus a half a point. So the Hurricanes are slightly favored at home against a 9-1 Cardinals team. I mean, if they lose this game, and again, it's not going to be crowded, not going to be packed, not going to be a lot of fan support. Look out. And I'm not saying that Dan Radakovich, the athletic director, former Clemson athletic director, is like a guy that makes decisions just off the cuff, but Miami will enter year 3 with Mario Cristobal on watch. I do believe that. I mean, his tenure will be on watch next season. All right, so that's all I got for you in that noon window. So like I said, if you got the yard to do, need to get the edging done for the last time, you need to run out and get some holiday decorations, hey, have yourself a morning. You'll be just fine. Nothing else compelling in that window at all. 2:30, you get a matchup of 2 top 25 teams as number 22 Utah is on the road at Arizona. The Wildcats, a surprisingly ranked 17th in the country. The problem with this game, more than anything, you can't catch it because it's on the Pac-12 network. I don't even know how to get the Pac-12 network. So good luck with that. That frees you up till 3 o'clock. Duke at Virginia. This is on the CW. This feels like old school Raycom, Jefferson Pilot. Give me a little Steve Martin. Give me a little Doc Walker. Give me a little CW. Tony Elliott hosting the Duke Blue Devils. Obviously, it's been an unbelievable season for the Blue Devils. Mike Elko's name going to be in the rumors, going to be in the conversation for that Texas A&M gig. Elliott is a guy that I think Clemson fans are really, really rooting for. I mentioned the victory they had over North Carolina earlier in the ball game. They're not loaded with talent by any means. It does feel like this year Tony Elliott has managed to squeeze about as much juice as he can out of a dehydrated orange there in Virginia. But I appreciate their effort, man. They lost in overtime to Miami. They lost by 7 against Louisville. They were up against the Cardinals last weekend. I mean, they're giving him every ounce. Like Virginia fans, I know 2-8, 1-5 is not ideal, but you gotta at least feel like you got a team where the players are bought in. And the tragedy that struck a year ago, that may have been about a year ago today. It was, with the 3 players tragically that were shot and killed. I think that kind of cauterized this group and really brought that Virginia family together. And I know it's a tragedy, and you wish you could go back and change it, but you can't. And that whole program was affected, but they've moved forward, and they moved forward the right way. And I think Tony Elliott's the right leader for that program. And I think you just see him what they've given him. So that's a 3:00 kickoff on the CW. So 3 down, 7 games to go. And there are more than 3 matchups to catch in that 3:30 window. So if you did decide to do the yard, if you did decide to hit the edging, if you did decide to go out and go shopping or do whatever in that noon window, or start your morning on the road, be home, because 3:30 it's on, if you will. The Georgia Bulldogs, the number 1 ranked team in the country, the reigning, defending national champions.
And I'm saying, woo, right here.
Two-time, back-to-back. They go to Knoxville, Tennessee, to take on the 18th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. That's a 3:30 CBS start. That 3:30 CBS SEC matchup has been in our What to Watch Wednesday window each and every week, and there's a reason why. That game is always a good one. Always a good one. Even when it's a blowout, it seems like the first half is always a good one to tune in and catch. Also at 3:30, over on NBC, how about this one? Notre Dame, the 17th ranked Fighting Irish. Or is that 19th, ranked Fighting Irish. Couldn't read my handwriting. 19th ranked Fighting Irish. They're hosting Wake Forest. The Demon Deacons going up against their former starting quarterback, Sam Hartman. Sam, don't call me Riley Skinner, Hartman, here on the program. That's up at Notre Dame Stadium. Again, a 3:30 start on NBC. Just the fascination with, what do you call it? Free agency, right? In the transfer portal. And Wake Forest is pretty terrible. Last weekend, they were atrocious, getting beat 26-6 by NC State, so much so that Dave Clawson apologized to the fan base. He has been a guy who, when you think about the history of Wake Forest football, he's been a guy who has positioned himself quite well. But this year has been a bitterly disappointing season for them. 4-6, likely to go to 4-7. Gonna miss a bowl game. I don't see them beating Notre Dame, but I am very intrigued. Sam Hartman and the Fighting Irish haven't played since losing to Clemson back on November the 4th, 31-23, and they get a chance to face off against his former teammates. And those guys have seen him a lot at practice. They've seen him a lot at practice. So I do wonder, does that help out some of those defensive backs in any capacity, just kind of knowing some of his tendencies? I don't know. But it's fascinating to see a player going up against his former team for sure. Keep your eyes on, though, Estime, the running back, Audric Estime for Notre Dame. He has the potential to have a big day for them. I really like the way that kid runs. I was fearful after his first run against Clemson that you were going to see that all day. Fortunately, you didn't. The Tigers really shut him down, held him just 5 yards in the second half. But again, that matchup on NBC at 3:30. Of course, you're likely to be there. North Carolina at Clemson. We always gloss over the Tigers game. That's on ESPN. We'll come back to it. Obviously, more tomorrow and Friday. But you kind of know what's on the line here for the Tigers. Positive momentum rolling into that matchup against South Carolina. Clemson gained bowl eligibility a week ago, sitting there at 6-4 overall. but 3-4 in the ACC. Clemson's in the bottom half right now of the ACC still, and would go a long way to go ahead and get them to 4-4 and finish the year even before heading down to face off with the Gamecocks under the lights next weekend in Williams-Brice. Then on ABC, UCLA's at Southern Cal. Obviously, the news out of UCLA yesterday that they fired Chip Kelly, likely to be fired, I guess. Did they not pull the trigger yet? Okay, likely to be fired in a couple weeks. That they're going to fire Chip Kelly. Let me say that. I thought they'd already pulled the trigger. Anyway, that's a storyline to certainly follow. Maybe depending on how they play in this game, might determine its fate. Either way, Lincoln Riley in Southern Cal, disappointing season, terrible defense. I keep thinking back to Corey Foreman. You remember the 5-star defensive lineman who was committed to Clemson coming out of, I believe it was Centennial High School. Dude, if that's right, if I'm on that, somebody hanging out with us watching, look it up. Corey Foreman coming out of high school. Was he Centennial High School? That's all the way out in California. I mean, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, Dutch Fork. I'm going all the way across the coast, and I'm going 4 years in the rear view of his commitment. But you remember, was coming to Clemson, flips, goes to Southern Cal, and man, every week when I watch the Trojans give up 40-plus points, I just go, man, was it worth it? Was it worth it to go out there and just get run up and down the field? Anyway, that's my other 3:30 game, that UCLA Southern Cal game. Obviously, for Lincoln Riley, he's getting paid big time. I don't know who UCLA would go get if indeed they do pull the trigger. Let's see. Sports Illustrated said Chip Kelly may not be UCLA's coach when they face the Bruins. According to a report, Kelly's likely to be fired after the USC game if UCLA loses. Okay. 48 minutes ago, likely to be fired. I thought I heard they did fire him, but maybe I just misremembered it. Many sources say it's now very realistic that UCLA will fire Kelly after they play Southern Cal on Saturday. Yeah, I would say that it hasn't exactly worked out, right? Like, I mean, if when you brought him in, and I think this is fair, even though, he had a stint, in Philadelphia with the Eagles. I think when UCLA brought him in, I think they were hoping that they were going to be able to become Oregon, right? And not only have they not been able to become Oregon, Oregon has become Oregon again. And so UCLA's probably sitting there going, wait a second. So this guy, and the Ducks, to their credit, even with Dan Lanning as the head coach, they've kind of kept some of their tendencies. They go for two here and there. Kind of wild how they're kind of the rebels when it comes to doing that kind of stuff that other teams won't. But maybe that's a part of it. There's got to be a frustration. You brought this guy in, you thought, man, we're gonna become that. It's not like Oregon was down, but they certainly weren't college football playoff Oregon. And here they are with a chance to get to the college football playoff this year, depending on how their season plays out. So maybe that's a part of it. Like UCLA people are like, did we get hornswoggled? All right. Final 3 games remaining on our What to Watch Wednesday list. We'll give them to you when we get back right here. The show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk, the show that shakes the Southland, live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter currently. We do have the ability to stream it directly to the website for just our premium subscribers. So if you're watching this stream and you like it, maybe, just maybe, come subscribe. You can start for $1. After that, $63.17 for a year. Support us, help us grow. Be great. Post in the forums, be amazing. Share our stories. That's awesome. But I will say, if you choose not to, It's always free on the iHeartRadio app, and we podcast every episode, so you can get it there as well. All right, Clem and Son says his son's name is Tyler. Sorry, excuse me. His son's name is Tyler. And he says he's been having a lot of fun with it.
Hey, Tyler, I've listened to enough of you.
I've listened to enough of you, Tyler. Clem's son also wants to know, what do I think about Donald Trump attending the Clemson, South Carolina game? He says, I'm cool with it because I think he's a Clemson fan and he loves Dabo. Now, I know that Gamecock Central, we had Mike Uval on yesterday. I didn't ask Mike about it, but I know they published that Trump would be attending the game. I know that Governor McMaster also says that Trump has a standing invitation to the South Carolina game. Now, whether or not he's going to be there, I don't know. So the question, let me read the question again. What do I think about it? So when Clemson played LSU in the national championship in New Orleans, I think he was President Trump at the time. I think he was the president. He was at the game. I don't remember why, honestly. I know we got some photos of him at the game. I know that I was in the press box. It's not like his box was near where we were, so I didn't really see where he was. I think he was on like a level lower than us. Now, because I'm in the media, I got there early, okay? And I don't know what the logistics are on this. And it's probably going to push back our What to Watch Wednesday list to the next segment, just looking at the clock where we are now. But we'll finish up our What to Watch Wednesday in the next segment. I apologize. But traffic was not an issue for me, okay, getting to the Superdome. Is that what they call the stadium down there in New Orleans? I think it's the Superdome. Anyway, I didn't have a problem. I got there early. So I have no idea what the traffic was like if and when President Trump came in at the time. Now, even though he's not currently the president, he's still, and I don't remember how many, I think at one point only a handful of the presidents were going to have security details and all that. And then I think when President Obama was in office, I think that got switched back to where every president, I think even Jimmy Carter, I believe, would have a security detail at this point. But there was some conversations about, well, does every living president need it? Or just like the last 2 or 3 or whatever that was. It doesn't matter. But the point is, when, even though he's not the president, he still has that security detail. And the last time that I remember him coming to Columbia as the president, I was having to commute to iHeart to do this show. And he may have been back another time, not as president. But as president, I know where I was because I sat in traffic while they shut down the interstate. He was at he was speaking at some place downtown Columbia, and they had to get him to the airport, and they dump the entire interstate. Okay, I don't know if you know this or not. They have officers sitting at every intersection. I don't even think, if I remember, that we could drive straight ahead and go under the overpass, just in case, the president's coming along, and whether it's Trump, Obama, Bush, whoever. I remember when Obama was in town one time. I happened to be there when the motorcade came through. Dude, that is cool. It is cool. All these cars coming and lights flashing, and you don't know who's who and what's what. Anyway, because they all look the same, they're kind of trying to mask what vehicle the president might be in. But I think we couldn't even go under. If I remember, I was sitting in traffic. We couldn't get on the interstate. And I don't even think you could drive under the overpass for fear that, if the president's coming over the top, that somebody could drive under and try to like bomb him or something. I don't know. I'm sure Secret Service has all that like done up. Now, if I am a fan, traffic to get to the Clemson, South Carolina game is already horrendous. And they ain't flying Donald Trump in on a helicopter. That would be my issue if I'm a fan. Man, I don't want anything else that's going to slow the ability to get to Williams-Brice Stadium. So, what do I think about Trump attending the Clemson, South Carolina game if he does intend to, if he does attend it? I'm thankful that I'm going to be there way before Donald Trump will be arriving. And so I won't have to sit in the traffic that you may have to sit in, because I can assure you, however they get him there, they're going to shut something down to get him there. And I know it's tough to get in and out of Clemson Stadium. It's not great getting in and out of Williams-Brice, if I'm being honest. But I got to imagine it would be even worse if Donald Trump is there and they're trying to, get him in. Now, getting him out will be different because he probably won't stay for the whole game. They'll get him out and he'll be gone before we know it. That won't be a factor, I don't think. That might slow up a couple of people leaving unless Clemson pulls a little 63-17 reincarnation on Gamecock fans, and then, they might be caught up leaving the stadium. But as far as Trump attending, traffic would be my main issue for everybody involved. And I don't know, if you're not the president, but you still have the security, is your motorcade as big? I don't know. But anyway, that aspect of seeing any president's really cool. It's cool, man, when you see Air Force One flying. Dude, it's awesome. It really is an awesome sight. All right, quick break. We'll come back. I'll give you the final 3 games in our What to Watch Wednesday edition of the program. Clemson Sports Talk, continuing our What to Watch Wednesday segment. Sorry, on the little tangent we got off on the traffic around Williams-Brice Stadium, if indeed former President Donald Trump does show up for the Clemson, South Carolina game. Governor McMaster has said that there's an open invitation. I don't know about y'all. I'm not from Charleston. I don't have the Charleston accent, I don't think. Maybe you do. But when I hear Governor McMaster, to me, I just hear what's the guy's name? This guy.
Any of this getting through to you, son?
That's what I hear. What was that dude's name? The guy who's always messing with the chicken hog. I can see him. It's the same guy that did the Bugs Bunny voice, but that's what I hear when I hear Governor McMaster speaking. Deshaun Watson, by the way, had season-ending surgery for the Browns, so he's done for the year. It was on his shoulder. I know he'd been dealing with an ankle thing. I just want to put that out there real quick. But nonetheless, 7 o'clock window, the final 3 games of your What to Watch Wednesday, and I apologize that we pushed it back one segment. Number 21, Kansas State at number 25, Kansas. That's on FS1. Lance Leipold, he's a name. I got a text message, as a matter of fact, yesterday. I think it was Tiger Chuck. Hit us up on the text line, 803-450-0086. He said the Kansas coach he thought would be the guy that would go take the job at Texas A&M, and maybe so. Leipold's obviously done a really good job at a program that doesn't have the greatest track record, right? We talked about that the other day when we talked about the last time that Kansas kind of had this feeling around it was when Mark Mangino was their head coach. And I'm sure they're sitting there with bated breath going, oh, man, we got a guy that's probably going to command a pretty hefty dollar, but he ain't going to command, $7.5 million a year the way that Jimbo did coming out of the chute. They might could get him. I don't know what. Let's see what he makes right now at Kansas. Let's see. Lance Leipold. Salary. Let's see what he's making. I would guess he's making 3.5, but maybe he's making more. $5 million. Okay, in all, next 7 years. So making $5 million. I don't know if that's a new contract or his original one. Anyway, 7's probably the number that they might pay. That's kind of the going rate now. If you go for a guy like this, that's what you're going to pay. But I would think the Aggies would want to stay a little bit cheaper. TJ texted the program as well and wanted to know about Shipley and the potential that he might transfer out of the program. TJ, I kind of mentioned that before you got here. I think that text came in yesterday. I tried to address it earlier, though. So go check it out in the podcast. And if I get time here at the back end of the program, I might mention it again. Also, that 7 o'clock window, man, what a matchup. Number 5, Washington on the road at Oregon State. Number 11, Oregon State. DJ, Ungalale. And the 11th ranked Beavers hosting Washington on ABC. So DJ will get a chance to sling the magic bean up against a top 5 team who is trending towards the college football playoff if they can win the Pac-12 on ABC, a national audience. That'll be one you want to lock in and watch. If you haven't watched DJ playing at Oregon State, this would be one to do it because he's got a chance to play, really the upset special. Next week, they'll take on Oregon. He'll get another shot at it. Ironically, Oregon State, one of the last 2 teams remaining in the Pac-12. I'm just double-checking that because maybe I'm lying to you. Yep, it is Oregon State and Oregon next week. They will face off at 8:30 on Friday next week, the day after Thanksgiving, Oregon and Oregon State. But what a huge matchup that is this week for the Beavers, who face both of the 2 teams that sort of became the catalyst for the breakdown of the conference when Washington and Oregon joined Southern Cal and UCLA in going to the Big Ten. And then last, Kentucky at South Carolina, 7 o'clock, these games. This one's on the SEC Network. For South Carolina, keeping a chance to be bowl eligible alive is what's on the line. The Gamecocks also have an opportunity to, kind of turn the momentum of their season the way Clemson has the past couple of weeks heading into their matchup with Clemson. And if that game against Clemson is for bowl eligibility, as Mike Yuva said, he feels like there's a chance that Juice Wells might actually play. And Wells has not been playing. Wells has been injured. He hasn't, I think, as Mike said, has not always been on the injury report. And I think a byproduct of that at this point for him might be that he's not necessarily hurt, but he doesn't maybe feel compelled to play. And that's my thoughts. Mike didn't say that, but that's kind of how I read it. But if they have a chance to go to a bowl game, that would be against Clemson. Not the bowl game, but the matchup to get to a bowl game would be against Clemson. Then he might feel a little bit more compelled to get out there and play one final regular season game to try to help South Carolina gain bowl eligibility. But if they lose to Kentucky, which I think it's going to be a tough matchup for Carolina to win, to be honest with you. All right, 803-450-0086. Final segment here on a Wednesday afternoon, a What to Watch Wednesday edition of the program. Coming up right around the bend. So stick with us for more Clemson Sports Talk. You can listen to the show live right now on Fox Sports Radio 1400 in the Midlands. And, of course, you can listen around the world on the iHeartRadio app, on your Amazon Echo, or your Google Home device by simply saying, listen to Fox Sports Radio 1400. Final segment on a What to Watch Wednesday edition of the program, the website. Put the .com on it, doggone it. That's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Coming up in just a little bit for those of you watching the show live, for those of you listening on iHeartRadio, we are closing in on the commitment of the number 2 prospect in the 2024 basketball class, the women's basketball class, as Camden 5-star Joyce Edwards will make her commitment known. She is down to South Carolina, LSU, and Clemson. She will make that decision known at 5:45. Now, remember, we were talking the other day with Clemson women's basketball coach, and this interview, by the way, is currently up on the website right now. As a matter of fact, if you want to check it out, let me pull the website up real quick with Amanda Butler. We go here, and we go there, and then I hit share. Boom, that article, Amanda Butler on the power of the Paul driving women's basketball. She said, quote, "It's a brand that's recognizable." And obviously, for Joyce Edwards, she's an in-state kid, but the Tigers have already picked up the commitment and the signing of Amari Berry. And this is a class, or at least a program, I should say, maybe the better terminology, that is obviously headed in the right direction. And if they can potentially land another big commitment, another big prospect, look, I said I think Dabo Swinney and the brand is a part of the reason that sports on Clemson's campus have gotten better. I also said in that interview, and you can listen to the whole thing, I also said in that interview that I do feel like in some respects, Dawn Staley has elevated women's basketball in our state. And I think that has a direct correlation to Clemson's women's basketball team getting better. And I'm not saying that Clemson is ever going to be able to recruit at the same level as South Carolina, as the South Carolina women's team. But I think there is something to be said for girls who have grown up maybe being a Clemson fan by virtue of the Tigers being good in football, who end up being great basketball players, who love basketball because it's a thriving sport in the state for women because of Dawn Staley. I don't know how that could hurt you if you're Clemson. So, again, I don't know what Joyce Edwards will choose, but we'll certainly talk about it tomorrow, especially if she decides to be a Tiger over the reigning national champion LSU Tigers and a incredibly dominant South Carolina women's basketball program. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Who knows? Anyway, let's see. Anything I missed that I meant to get to today? I mentioned Deshaun Watson. Watson, I do see this article was not up when we started the show, I don't think. Deshaun Watson was in shock when he found out that he was going to be out. He says very tough. He's heard about it. Took 15 seconds before he could come up with the words, according to this article, to describe his emotions. Season-ending surgery to repair a fracture in his throwing shoulder. An MRI performed Monday revealed that Watson had a displaced fracture to the glenoid in his right shoulder. Team doctors determined Watson needed immediate surgery to avoid further structural damage. So Watson done for the year. Another Clemson Tiger out for the year that was on my fantasy team. Fortunately, I've got Big Trev, the Giant Killer, as my starting quarterback. But Mike Williams, obviously out for the year. with an injury. Oh, yeah, final thing. I mentioned out of the gates, Draymond Green only got a minute. Okay, so in that matchup between Golden State and Minnesota, the kid from Minnesota, I can't remember his name, grabbed Klay Thompson and ripped his jersey, and Draymond came in. Rudy Gobert tried to get involved, and Draymond came up and kind of was putting Rudy Gobert in like a headlock. It's what it looked like, old school wrestling move. But here's the thing, and I know people want him suspended. I don't like Draymond Green. You know this. You've been around this program long enough. I think the guy needs to get his head on straight. But I watched it a couple of times. I didn't think he was putting any pressure on Gobert at all. As a matter of fact, I saw Gobert kind of smiling and almost laughing. And I don't think that Gobert in that moment was taking it as if he was being choked out. Now, maybe the NBA sees it different. Maybe they give him a 10-game suspension. Maybe they give him a 5-game suspension. I'd probably suspend him for about 3 games and call it a day. And my justification would be based off of what I've seen. And I didn't hear what Gobert had to say about it. So maybe Gobert was really mad. But to me, it didn't look like it was anything overly serious, quite frankly. It looked like they were more playing around almost. It's kind of weird. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll talk about it again tomorrow. Until then, though, as always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers!